wide receiver, Brashad Perriman at 21. Moving on to 22, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock. They run a 3-4 defense. They had the best offense in football last year, even though they've got a few question marks on their offensive line. They've also got depth issues at running back, but they have no starting issues at running back, so you would not contemplate using your first-round pick on a running back there. They are without question going defense. They lost linebackers. They lost corners. They lost safeties. They lost tons on their defense. So to me, secondary is by far the most glaring need for the Steelers, and the Steelers take the most talented secondary player arguably in this entire draft, and the Pittsburgh Steelers at 22 select cornerback Marcus Peters out of Washington. And that could be the steal of the draft. He might be this draft's Darrelle Revis or Richard Sherman. He reminds me a lot of Richard Sherman, but with way better ball hawking skills. This guy, man, watch some highlights on Marcus Peters. Holy cow. He makes one-handed catches like Odell Beckham. You know, he looks like an Odell Beckham, but on defense. Just not as big, but this guy can play the frickin' ball like no other. He's just got off the field issues. But I think the Steelers, being a firm organization, are willing to work with that, and that doesn't scare them off of him one bit. And so they are ecstatic in Pittsburgh, at least in the locker room and in the war room. Maybe not the fan base, but the war room is ecstatic as the Steelers get Marcus Peters, cornerback, at 22. So that brings us to the Detroit Lions at number 23 are on the clock. They've got offensive line issues that I did not comprehend at all. Originally in my mock drafts, I had expected either Todd Gurley or Melvin Gordon to go to the Lions and complete their offensive skill positions. They have Jockey Bell, but he's a role player, an overachiever. I like him a lot, but I don't know that he's a workhorse at all. And they lost Reggie Bush. Bell is much more suited to be the number 2 guy, where I still think that it's quite possible they go Melvin Gordon with this pick. However, I looked at their depth chart earlier, and they have no left guard at all. They literally have no left guard at all, and they've got a whole. They have one offensive lineman basically. They have their left tackle locked in. Everybody else is a question mark. So because of that, I have the Detroit Lions selecting La'el Collins, offensive lineman. I believe he's from LSU. He might be Alabama. There's a lot of players from those two schools, so I've been getting them mixed up. But that's, I believe, where they go. He has the versatility to start at guard. He has the versatility to also start at right tackle. He has the versatility to be put at left tackle, and you could move Riley Reif from left tackle to right tackle if you so desired. Or it gives you so much flexibility on an offensive line that has 4 out of 5 needs still yet to be met. I think him or Cameron Irving are their only 2 options. Cameron Irving is the center from Florida State. He has a lot of experience playing left tackle as well. I don't know if he's ever played guard, but I'm sure he could play left guard as good as anyone else that's, moving around on the offensive line. So to me, those are their 2 options. But La'el Collins' size and specific experience with multiple positions plays a little better for Detroit's needs. So I have Detroit drafting offensive lineman La'el Collins at 23. Moving on to 24, the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. And I'm telling you right now, Cardinals are going defense. They lost defensive pieces, key defensive pieces in this off season, and they were successful last year because of their stout, overachieving defense. So that is where they are looking to go in this first round. Not running back Melvin Gordon, although he will be tempting to them, still sitting on the board. They can get Melvin Gordon. They can't get Melvin Gordon, but they can get an almost equivalent to Melvin Gordon in the second round or the third round. They can get Amir Abdullah or Jay Ajayi or TJ Yeldon or Duke Johnson or Tevin Coleman. This running back class is talented and deep, so it is within their best interest to draft defense in this first round and leave the running back need to the second and third rounds for the Arizona Cardinals. So I have the Arizona Cardinals selecting Jordan Phillips, nose tackle out of, I believe, Oklahoma. He is the most talented nose tackle outside of Danny Shelton in the draft. He just has a very questionable motor, doesn't always play up to his talent level, tends to disappear from time to time, but he has all the physical tools, the size, the speed, the strength, the explosiveness, everything. And he is the best 3-4 defensive line fit, still available. And that's where they're hurting the most on defense, in my opinion. The Cardinals is on that front defensive line for their 3-4. They lost Darnell Dockett, a key piece. And the three guys they got starting there, just they're nobody to hang your hat on at all. So I think it's a no-brainer that the Cardinals have to go nose tackle. It's just a matter of defensive line, more vaguely. It's just a matter of who they like most. If they like Jordan Phillips, or the other route they would go on the defensive line would be Eddie Goldman, would be their other possible option from Florida. I feel that Phillips has slightly a little more upside and a little more in his repertoire at the moment than Goldman does. I also feel he's a better fit schematically, by far a better fit schematically. Goldman is more of a run-stuffing 4-3 defender who does have the size to be converted into a nose tackle in a 3-4 or a defensive end, but not sure if he has the athleticism to play the defensive end in a 3-4. Nose tackle, he might not be able to eat those blocks up. It's questionable. So I think Jordan Phillips is the best fit for them at that position of need. But again, they might like Goldman a little bit better. But so at 24, Arizona Cardinals select nose tackle, defensive tackle, Jordan Phillips. All right, moving to 25, the Carolina Panthers are on the clock. I've got 8 names on the board here, and they're all offensive linemen. I guarantee you, with the biggest guarantee I can give, the Carolina Panthers draft an offensive lineman in the first round. It's just a matter of who's left and who they like the most out of those guys. I have them drafting Stanford tackle Andrus Peat. The other person I think they would possibly take over Peat would be Eric Flowers, offensive tackle from Miami. For me, it's a total coin flip which one of those two guys Carolina prefers to draft in this situation, but I have them going with Andrus Peat. So that brings the Baltimore Ravens onto the clock at number 26. Do not be surprised if they go wide receiver, as there are a lot of talented wide receivers, and they have almost no wide receivers now that they lost Torrey Smith. All they got is Steve Smith Sr. and a bunch of nobodies, basically, so they have a huge need at wide receiver. But as I mentioned, this is an extremely talented and deep wide receiver class in this draft. And because of that, I feel the Baltimore Ravens do not reach on a wide receiver based off a need, and instead they take the other defensive tackle, who many teams, like I said, believe they can convert into a dominant 3-4 nose tackle, although he has primarily been used as a 4-3 defensive tackle for run stopping, and that is D-tackle Eddie Goldman out of Florida. They need to replace Halati Ngata. They're built on defense more than they're built on offense, and that defensive line in Baltimore is not impressive at all. Their linebacking core is set. It's stacked. Their secondary, corners, and safeties pretty much set. But that D-line, all three of them across there, could stand to be upgraded. So I feel that that's where they have to go based off of how this draft will play out, the talent at the different positions, who's going to still be available. If they don't go D-tackle here, they ain't going to get one worth of crap at their next pick, where they could still get a good wide receiver at their next pick. They will, in fact. So, Baltimore Ravens, with the 26th pick, select Eddie Goldman, defensive tackle. Wrapping it up here, trying to round out this mock draft and get some other topics in before we got to close out tonight. We'll definitely be hitting the 90-minute mark, maybe a little bit over that, maybe the 100-minute mark. But Anyway, moving on to the 27th pick, the Dallas Cowboys are now on the clock. They're going to be tempted to go Melvin Gordon. People are going to be chirping. They're going to do the smart thing. They're going to take a running back in the second or third or fourth round because they've already got Darren McFadden and Joseph Randle, serviceable role players, and they run the ball via their offensive line, not via their running back. So no reason to believe that they couldn't get one of these other top 5, top 10 running backs in a mid-round who would come in and be successful against that amazing offensive line. So Dallas is not looking running back. They are looking defense, and they could upgrade it almost everywhere on defense. They prefer, I'll tell you right now, Dallas prefers to go defensive line with this pick. They want Eddie Goldman. They're bummed. They're crushed, in fact, that he's gone. They would trade up possibly for Eddie Goldman. They want Eddie Goldman. Their D-line stinks, needs to get better. It needs to be better against the run because you don't want DeMarco Murray in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform running all over you twice a year. That is the last thing they want. So like I said, ideally Dallas is going defensive line with this pick. However, in my mock draft, I do not have any more defensive linemen available that are worth selecting at this pick. Thus, I have Dallas addressing their secondary need with a guy who Jerry Jones is going to love because he's a workout warrior, put insane numbers up at the combine and all of his pro day workouts and individual workouts, and I'm talking about cornerback / safety. This guy could play safety too, and that's the deal sealer for the Cowboys, where they're going, this addresses 2 of our needs potentially that we feel we have in one guy. That's why they're going to go this route. But the Dallas Cowboys at 27 select Byron Jones, cornerback / potential safety from UConn, I want to say, is where he played, and that's why not a whole lot of people knew who he was. But Dallas Cowboys select Byron Jones at 27. Moving on to 28, the Denver Broncos. They run a 3-4 defense. They could look to improve their defense. However, I think it's almost a lock that they go offensive line, and there are plenty of good offensive linemen here to choose from as well. I have them taking the best guy on the board, and that, to me, is Eric Flowers out of Miami. He's got size and nasty and strength and athleticism that isn't on the board in any other guys anywhere for the rest of the draft. He needs to get his head right a little bit. You can plug him in right away at your right tackle, and I've also read that he is expected to be a Pro Bowl caliber guard as well, were he to get moved inside to guard. And they don't need to ever look at him moving over to left tackle, at least not for a long time, because that is their one good offensive lineman that they have is Ryan Clady, their left tackle. So I feel that the pick is either Eric Flowers or Cameron Irving. Like I said, with Irving's lack of guard experience, he's versatile at the center and the tackle position. Guard is more of a question mark for him, whereas Flowers, tackle and guard are his versatilities, and center is something you wouldn't put him at. So I think it's a coin flip between Flowers and Irving, and I think Denver picks Eric Flowers. So that puts us at 29. The Indianapolis Colts are on the clock, and they are looking interior offensive. They're ecstatic if they can get Cameron Irving. They race him up. They've got Andrew Luck center for the next 10 years or however long, and they got a guy that they can move around the offensive line from year to year at every position to fulfill whatever need they have in protecting and keeping safe Andrew Luck. So, but if Irving goes to Denver, then I think Indianapolis will probably take Flowers. So the Flowers-Irving picks are interchangeable, but I have Flowers going 28 to Denver, and Cameron Irving, offensive lineman, center, going to the Indianapolis Colts at 29. Again, I think they would go defensive line as well if there was someone like a Goldman or Phillips available, but the talent's gone at that position now. So, moving on to 30, the Green Bay Fudge Packers, are on the clock. They're almost for sure to go defense. They could flirt with the idea of taking a tight end, as they don't really have a good tight end, and Max Williams of the University of Minnesota is the one first-round caliber tight end that you could consider taking here. However, I don't think they go offense one bit. They're pretty arrogant and confident about their offense, and rightfully so. So I have them going defense. They need to get better on defense, and they lost pieces on defense. So I got them going defense, taking the best player available, I don't think they'll go secondary. I think they will look to get bigger up front or more athletic in the linebacking core. And on my board, the best player that fits that criteria is Eli Harold